The letters are cut deep and straight, each stroke sunk into gray wood that splinters under a fingertip. CROATOAN. John White stands in the broken gateway of the Roanoke Palisade and feels the word hit harder than any shout. No Maltese cross for distress. No bodies, no burned roofs. The place looks packed and gone, as if the colony exhaled and walked into the trees. Oars are stacked, gardens are bare. The only sound is wind moving through pine and marsh grass, and the steady wash of the Sound. 3 summers earlier, in 1587, the colony began with noise and hope. This was meant to be a civilian town, families, craftsmen, and 2 translators tied to this coast by language and history. White, a careful painter turned governor, took soundings with pilots who swore they could deliver the party to the Chesapeake. Real seas canceled paper plans. Currents, arguments, and the season drove them again to Roanoke Island. They made do. A palisade of straight pine trunks went up. Houses rose tight inside the line. Fresh water was close but hard. Mosquitoes ruled. To the west, the Sounds lay flat and bright, stitched with shoals that punish haste. On August 18th, Eleanor Dare, White's daughter, gave birth to Virginia, the first English child born in the Americas. The cry felt like proof the settlement was more than a garrison that would be pulled up at the first quarrel. They baptized Manteo, their strongest native ally, and gave him an English title he did not need. He moved between villages and fort with ease and warned that food would rule every decision. He was right. The voyage had not brought the flour, tools, and extra hands the colony needed to carry itself through winter. The council pressed White to return to England for supplies and more settlers. He promised to come back by spring. War with Spain froze the harbors. The Armada drew guns and hulls away from every other purpose. Captains who might have carried White chose profit and safety. He tried twice in small vessels and was driven back. Months dragged. A year became 2. He wrote letters no ship would carry and counted his granddaughter's birthdays by guessing at the height of a child he had met for 5 days. In 1590, he managed a berth with privateers who promised to touch the banks on their way home if weather allowed. They turned north late in August and felt for the inlets with the caution learned by men who had seen good ships eaten by the bar. One night, a fire flickered among the trees of Roanoke. They fired a culverin and muskets and swore they heard an answering call. Morning showed only ash at the edge of the wood and the rattle of palmetto in the wind. The landing party found order, not ruin. Houses had been taken down and moved, not smashed. Fences were opened as if carts had passed. No graves were clawed up by pigs or storm. White dug where he had buried his own chests before sailing and found them rifled and rotted. And there, on the post by the gate, the word that told him where to look next. CROATOAN. On a nearby tree, 3 letters, CRO, cut in the same neat hand. Before he left in 1587, the governor had agreed on a code. If the colony abandoned the site under attack, they would add a cross to their message. No cross marked the post. They had moved, and they had not moved in panic. They tried to follow. The banks bit back. A gale came up and jerked the ships on their anchors. One cable parted. Another fouled and threatened to drag them onto the shoals. By dawn, with masts humming and every sail wet, the captains wanted open water and repairs, not a hard lee-shore approach. White argued to push for CROATOAN and lost. Spray blew across the decks as the coast slipped astern. He would never be this close again. After that day, the trail turns into testimony, rumor, and patient digging. When Jamestown took root 20 years later, Captain John Smith heard from Algonquian leaders of Europeans living inland who built houses and worked copper. He also heard a rival story that a powerful chief had attacked a settlement in the Chesapeake country and killed English who lived there. Smith tried to confirm and failed, limited by fragile alliances and thin supplies. Other traders spoke of gray-eyed children in coastal towns and traded for items that looked freshly English. The simplest explanation is quiet. The colonists went where the carving pointed. CROATOAN was friendly ground. Food, shelter, and marriage ties could be had there. People folded into native households to survive the winters that sand and wind make harder than maps admit. From that beginning they drifted, some staying on the island, some moving up the sounds, some taken inland along hunting and marriage trails. No single place would ever hold all their traces. The record became a scatter of people, not a fort. Archaeology adds pieces. On Hatteras Island, excavations have turned up English artifacts, knife fragments, a slate pencil tip, a rapier hilt, lying in native layers from the right decades. Farther inland, at a mainland location marked faintly on a period map, digs have found shards of 16th century English pottery in the remains of a native town. Alone, any item could be trade. Together, they read like a path, English goods, and likely English people, moving through the region in the years after white sailed away. Other theories keep their shine because drama travels well. Storms could have wrecked the colony after it left. Slavers could have seized people along the sounds. A Spanish raid from Florida could have cut through a town before anyone could write it down. But the site itself argues for a planned move. No bodies, no burned roofs, a destination clearly named, no distress mark, and a governor blocked by weather and the priorities of ships that did not serve him. Time widened the gap and thinned the paper. The people did what people do: married, renamed, and carried memory inside stories that were never written. Stand on Roanoke's shore and the place still explains itself. The island is thin as a hand. Pines hiss. The sounds flash slate and then silver. Mosquitoes come in clouds. In kind months, the water offers fish and oysters, and the light feels generous. In a bad winter, the wind turns mean and stays mean, cutting straight through boards and plans. The colony's odds were poor from the start: shallow soil, strained alliances, delayed resupply, and a drought later confirmed in rings of old trees. When rescue did not come, they cut their losses and walked. So the story that survives is a message on a post and a governor who ran out of weather. The carving was a forwarding address, not a riddle. Failing to reach CROATOAN left space for centuries of guesswork. The human truth is plainer. They left together, carried what they could, and tried to live. Some did. Names faded into new ones. Tools broke, were traded, and were buried. Children learned different words for the same stars. If you listen on a quiet morning, you can almost hear the scene White wanted: a latch lifting, water tipped into a pot, a child laughing beyond a doorway. He had the direction carved in letters anyone could read. He lacked the wind and the time to follow. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.